Back home, got my normal setup, feels good, I got my Marvel shirt on. So now let's jump into this show. Heard good things, I have high expectations. Please don't let me down. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Anderson here, and this is Agatha All Along, Season 1 of multiple, maybe, Episode 1, Seekest Thou the Road. So of all the Marvel products that I've been looking at recently, this is probably the one that I was looking forward to the most, alongside like Daredevil and Thunderbolts, because I heard good things about this, and this was the show that I was kind of interested in seeing more about. I'm surprised it took so long to get to it after everything that happened in WandaVision, which was, 4 years before this came out? But there was a lot of mystery and intrigue as far as where they were going to take the character of Agatha Harkness, and giving her own show seems to imply that maybe she'll be an anti-hero, maybe she'll be a villain that's just getting a bit more backstory here, since we didn't get much about her in WandaVision. So maybe this is just going to explain a bit more about who she is as a character, and maybe she'll pop up in like the next Doctor Strange movie or something like that. So looking at this first episode, first of all, we've got 9 episodes for this season, which is good because that means this season won't feel rushed and unfocused like Echo was. But there was a concern before I started this episode of, are they going to spend too much time focusing on this world that Wanda created for Agatha? But thankfully they didn't do that. We got through all of that in this first episode. She's officially out of that spell, and we do have a bit of a story forming as far as what she's going to be doing, but there is still plenty of mystery involved in it as well. So first we'll look at some of the negatives in this episode, because there were a couple, but not enough to make me dislike this episode. But the acting was a little odd. That might have been a choice though, which is why I'm not saying it's a super negative, because obviously Kathryn Hahn is a great actress, so this is not, oh, she's just bad at acting. But it did feel like her as the cop didn't feel that convincing. And maybe that's part of the point. Maybe it shows she's not comfortable, Agatha, in this world that Wanda created and these characters that she created. It could also be a reference to maybe some of these true crime shows, which I don't watch, to be fair. Maybe they have this type of acting that's just sort of over the top and kind of goofy, and not in a good way. Because especially the interrogation scene with this random kid that she ended up kidnapping, her writing into the notepad like, "Oh, loser who's at home alone, or more likely a liar." It felt over the top in the worst possible way. I have to think that that had to be a choice. Surely they didn't look at that and go, "Oh no, that was great." But the other thing that was a bit of a negative is the fight scene at the end. A couple things about it. First of all, the choreography wasn't great on it. It was just a basically hand-to-hand knife fight, and it felt like a lot of the moves they were doing were kind of slow, weren't the best edited either. But on top of that, if you just look at the setup for the scene, we know Aubrey Plaza's character is a witch, so the fact she's coming in with a knife against Agatha, who has none of her powers, it kind of feels like the stakes are pretty low, because we know Agatha's not going to die, and it feels like Aubrey Plaza's character could just easily kill her if she just used her powers. So it sets up for what Agatha points out after the fight scene ends, which is, you don't want to kill me when I'm this weak. You want to try to kill me when I'm at full power. So it does end up lowering the stakes a bit, and it makes the fight scene feel kind of pointless. But everything else in this episode was perfectly fine, showing how all of the characters around her were saying normal things to her, but it kind of still fit in this mindset of a true crime TV show that she's in. And I enjoy those episodes that when you go back and when you watch it again with that in mind, of all of these people are not actually a part of this fantasy that she's living. I feel like a lot of the lines that they're saying have that double meaning that is kind of funny to think about from their point of view. Everything she's saying, it adds a rewatchability factor that I think is really good to have in a show. Everything else was fine, seeing how the fact that Scarlet Witch is now gone, it does feel like the reality that she set her in is sort of coming apart a bit. And we see that several times throughout the episode where things sort of happen and it feels nonsensical. It feels odd, for lack of a better term. But that's part of the spell isn't as strong now that Scarlet Witch is gone. And it just takes somebody like Aubrey Plaza's character to sort of step in and help her rip out of that reality, I suppose. The whole scene where she's outside naked talking to the neighbor was really funny. His reaction, and also the reaction of the neighbors, the one father character that's got the mustache, trying to get their daughter inside, but he can't stop looking. Something kind of funny about that. But also I think the way the episode ends is very interesting. It sets up for what sounds like a fun story. It seems like it's going to be about Agatha trying to get her powers back while also dodging all of these witches that are coming after her. And I think that's a good setup. I don't know how long it's going to be until she has her powers back. If I had to guess based on other stories that I've seen that are similar to this one, she's going to get some of her powers back early on, but not until the end of this show will she get her full powers back, more than likely. But all in all, it's a great first episode, great setup for the season. So we'll see where it goes. But with all that being said, we'll move on to the next episode. I'll see you guys there. And now episode 2, Circle Sewn with Fate, Unlock Thy Hidden Gate. I was going to make titling these videos a lot more difficult with long-ass titles like this. Things are starting to pick up a little bit. I don't know if the whole season is going to be Agatha and group here traveling down the road, but I find it kind of interesting. All these different witches that she goes and recruits to be a part of her coven. I will say I don't really understand how they're able to access the road if... I know she's Miss Davis, but I just want to call her Kitty. The fact that she's here, even though she's not actually a witch, I don't understand how that works. I'm assuming the black heart on the page is in reference to Aubrey Plaza's character, since she said in the first episode her heart beats black for Agatha. And I'm assuming that's also why she didn't want to go get her to be a part of the coven. But what I also find confusing about that is, if this really is supposed to be the coven that she's supposed to go get, why would Aubrey Plaza's character help her outside of wanting her to be at full power so she can kill her? I would assume she wouldn't care if she did get killed by whatever this group of Salem 7 is coming after her. So I just don't think she would really want to go help her access the road to get her power back. But who knows, maybe she is just that excited to kill her herself that she wants her to get her power back. Who knows? But it does feel weird that even without a group of 5 witches, which seems to be the prerequisite, you could still access the road just by singing the song. I don't really understand that. Or maybe it's more so you can access the road by singing the song, but you need to have a group of 5 of these different types of witches involved to be able to get through it. I don't really know. I hope they maybe expand upon that a little bit more. But everything in this episode was fine. There was nothing really that stood out about it that was really, really fun and exciting or really bad. I do find the one guy who they just have him as teen in the episode description. I will say the character is not the most interesting because I've seen this type of character before. The young, spunky go-getter character. Very stereotypical in a lot of ways, and they're not really doing anything different with him outside of the fact we don't know his name, and he can't seem to say anything about himself personally without Agatha, I guess, not being able to hear it for some reason. I don't know if that's specific to her, or if he's just not allowed. Maybe he's been cursed and not allowed to share any personal information about himself. But it does raise a lot of questions as far as who could have done that, why they would have done that. A lot of interesting questions in there that I'm excited to get some answers to. But the rest of the coven, fairly interesting. We got a little bit of information and backstory about each of them in this episode, but I'm assuming we're going to get a bit more as we go through these trials. I wouldn't be surprised if the trials on this road maybe tackle each of them individually, and that's why you need all these different types of witches, because each one is going to have their own trial that they have to personally get through. And maybe that's why one witch is not capable of going through it by themselves, because you need to have all these different types of powers. Which does beg the question, if Agatha supposedly went through the road before, did she go through by herself, or did she go through with another group? But the only other things that really stood out was the song itself was really nice sounding, good harmonies involved. I don't know if the people who are playing these characters, the actresses, I don't know if they all actually sang it or if they had some singers come in and do it, but it sounded really, really nice, and the music behind it as well. Yeah, there was something very calming but also very ominous about it. I think just the voices and how they sounded and how they mixed together, very relaxing, but there was also just this undertone to it, and if I understood music theory more, I could probably explain it. Best guess, maybe some of the minor notes are why I felt this sort of ominous feeling behind it. Maybe the music is what brought out the ominous feel. Maybe it was the fact that they were under attack by the Salem 7 while the song was going on. Yeah, that was just something that I wanted to talk about because I personally really liked it. With all that being said, I think that's about it for this episode. So it's got my attention, got me hooked, excited to see more. So on to the next episode. I'll see you there. And now episode 3, Through Many Miles of Tricks and Trials. So this one was good. It was just pretty predictable in a lot of ways. First of all, the fact that they end up in this house and there's wine there. All I could think is, okay, so the wine's poison, and this is going to be the potions trial, and she's going to have to find the antidote, create it somehow. Even when it got to the end, I was not too surprised to see Sharon die, which should be more shocking than it was. The fact that this random woman was forced into this because Agatha didn't want to go turn to whoever Aubrey Plaza's character is. The fact that she just dies, first of all, should be more shocking, and also should be a bit more sad, I suppose. But once again, because Marvel can't stop marveling, they have to throw in the little quippy one-liner after she's dead. There's just something about that style of, we're not going to have anything too sad, so let's throw in a quippy little one-liner to lighten the mood, even though this random woman, innocent woman in all of this, just died. It is pretty stupid, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I wasn't too surprised when she died, because as they were taking the potion, first of all, that last minute was not a minute. It was closer to 3, I think. But I did have the thought of, I could see them killing her off. She wasn't going to be useful on the road anyway, because she's not actually a witch. And this would be something to maybe up the stakes a little bit more, to have somebody die. And honestly, I could see another member of this little coven dying in future things. Probably not one that will need to complete their trial. But for instance, Jin, I could see her dying in one of the future trials. Or let's say they do the divination one next. I could see her dying after she's done with that. Like, outside of Agatha and Teen, whoever he is, the rest of these characters do seem a little expendable at the sake of, we're going to deepen the stakes. And Sharon was the most obvious one to take out first, because she's not going to be useful on the road anyway. So maybe not. Maybe they will all survive outside of Sharon. But right now, that's kind of how it feels like it's setting up for me, that all of these members of this coven will not make it through the road. I feel like by the end of it, it's just going to be Agatha, Aubrey Plaza's character, and Teen, more than likely. But we do get a little bit more characterization on the ladies involved here. They all have some hallucinations that reveal a bit more of their backstory, so that was a clever way to introduce it. We also do get a little bit more clarification that this curse or hex or whatever that's been put on the teen, it's not just Agatha that can't hear him, nobody can. So it is pretty interesting. I will say I'm leaning towards he's going to be Agatha's son. Even before they started talking a little bit about how she gave up her son, there was that thought that crossed my mind. I'm like, did she have a kid? Because I could see it being something along those lines, where this is her kid that she either didn't know she had or maybe lost a while ago. And I think Jen said that she even gave him up to Mephisto to be able to get the Darkhold, and there is an M on his mouth whenever he tries to say his name. I don't know if that connects. I will say I do know something about Mephisto that's already been spoiled for a future thing, which sucks that got spoiled, but hey, what can you do? The internet's a terrible, terrible place to be if you want to try to avoid spoilers. But that is a possibility in my mind, that that's who this is, that's what happened to him, that's why he's not able to say anything, because if it is Mephisto that has had control of him this whole time, he wouldn't want his identity getting out there, because then Agatha would know her son is still alive. So that's just the current theory I'm going on. It does feel a little obvious, so I don't know if that's what they're going to do with it, or if this is kind of the red herring to make you think this, and then by the end something else will get revealed. But it's a decent little mystery to have for this season, and is probably the most interesting thing right now about the show, because the road is maybe going to be a little bit predictable. We'll see what happens next with it. I think that about does it for this episode. I will say the writing and the dialogue isn't really connecting with me right now. It feels disingenuous, I suppose. Feels like I'm hearing more a bunch of cliches and TikTok catchphrases than I'm actually hearing characters having dialogue. So hopefully that'll change, but at least the acting has been entertaining enough that I've been sort of able to overlook that for now. But with all that being said, those are my thoughts on the first 3 episodes. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these first 3? Let me know, we can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Agatha All Along reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of other reviews on here, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.